Welcome to today's Explainer. We're digging into the mechanics of what is, honestly, one of the most stunning electoral upsets we've seen in modern political history. For over half a century, the political scene in the southern Indian state of Tamil Nadu has been locked down tight. It was famous for being completely impenetrable, controlled by two massive, entrenched political machines. But you know, what actually happens when a total newcomer steps in and just completely rewrites the rules of engagement? Well, that's exactly what we're going to unpack today. We'll be looking at the hard data, the on-the-ground strategy, and the digital playbook that literally made the impossible possible.
So, the big question is, how on earth do you break a 60-year political duopoly in just 2 years? Let's dive right into this. We're exploring how a newly formed party, spearheaded by a massive cinematic icon, fundamentally re-engineered how you mobilize voters. We're talking about the Tamilnaga Vetri Kazhagam, or TVK, led by the actor C. Joseph Vijay. In literally just 2 years of existence, this organization completely dismantled a 62-year-old political establishment. And to really understand how they pulled this off, we have to look way past the celebrity factor and deeply analyze the actual architecture of their campaign.
Here's our roadmap for today's Explainer. First, breaking the Dravidian duopoly. Second, the Phygital campaign pivot. Third, algorithms, AI, and holograms. Fourth, the 69,000 booth dashboard. And finally, number 5, blueprint for modern elections.
All right, let's kick things off with part 1, breaking the Dravidian duopoly.
Now, to really appreciate the scale of this, you gotta remember that since 1967, Tamil Nadu has been locked down by two Dravidian giants, the DMK and the AIAMDK. They basically operated like a revolving door of power, right? They had the legacy, the massive infrastructure, and these deeply entrenched traditional voter bases. Honestly, taking them on was widely considered political suicide. But then, a massive shock to the system. TVK came in and captured 108 out of 234 assembly seats. The incumbent DMK alliance reduced to 73, and the AIAMDK fell down to just 53. TVK didn't just win seats, though. They pulled in a staggering 35% of the total vote share. To put that into perspective, that is over 1.7 crore votes. This wasn't some minor marginal victory. It was a wholesale migration of voters away from the legacy parties.
And how did they do it? Well, the legacy incumbents were still relying on what you could call exhausting microphone-era tactics. Scorching public rallies, those massive physical banners, and just marathon-length speeches. TVK looked at that and made it obsolete overnight. They came in with a nimble, startup-style approach, basically flooding the zone with AI-generated videos, holograms, WhatsApp meme culture, and rapid-fire 30-second reels.
Which brings us to part 2, the Phygital campaign pivot. The real catalyst for this overarching phygital strategy, which is blending physical presence with a massive digital operation, was actually a near tragedy. There was an early campaign stampede in the city of Karur, and that scary moment forced TVK reader Vijay to fundamentally rethink traditional campaigning. So here's the absolute crucial point. Vijay physically campaigned in person for less than 3 weeks out of the entire election cycle. He literally skipped nearly 90% of the constituencies. Instead, he leaned completely into this phygital strategy. By making his real-world physical appearances incredibly rare, he drastically pumped up the perceived value of every single event. Plus, it let them safely bypass administrative hurdles and major crowd control issues. But as we all know, technology without a solid message is just noise, right? TVK positioned itself with a very specific, carefully crafted narrative. They branded themselves as an egalitarian alternative, stating they were 100% secular and 100% against right-wing ideology. By packaging the straightforward, ideology-neutral narrative of change and social justice into snappy, modern digital formats, the campaign absolutely captured Gen Z, women, and first-time voters. These were folks who were quite frankly just fatigued by the decades-old rhetoric of the political establishment. Moving right along to part 3, algorithms, AI, and holograms.
So let's look at the digital architecture here. TVK's information technology wing didn't just act like a defensive PR shield. They operated like a highly aggressive, proactive content factory. For instance, they used high-definition holograms to literally make Vijay appear in multiple urban centers at the exact same time. It's wild. But perhaps their biggest weapon of all was artificial intelligence. AI collapsed the production time of targeted political ads from weeks down to mere hours. Think about it. If an opponent made a claim in the morning, TVK's IT wing could have a highly polished, targeted video response flooding TikTok and Instagram algorithms by that very afternoon. They seamlessly embedded a campaign into the daily WhatsApp and meme culture of the average voter.
Now, of course,
This kind of rapid-fire tech raises some pretty serious questions about the future of political discourse. As highlighted by political analyst Professor Ramu Manavanan in our source material, this digital frenzy created this almost hyper-real environment for voters. It actively blurred the line between organic consumer fandom, like, just loving a movie star, and highly coordinated political mobilization. It's a fascinating and maybe even slightly disquieting dynamic where the digital feed starts to feel more real than the actual physical campaign trail.
All right, let's get into part 4, the 69,000 booth dashboard.
Because here's the thing, algorithmic dominance alone doesn't win elections. You can have literally all the viral reels in the world, but if you don't actually get people to walk into a polling station, you lose, plain and simple. Enter TVK's massive ground game, 69,000. That staggering number represents the local booth committees TVK strategically structured across the entire state. They clearly realized that previous actors who jumped into politics ultimately failed because they lacked a real terrestrial footprint. So TVK spent years transforming a disparate cinematic fan club into this incredibly disciplined, data-driven political machine.
Just look at the rigorous organizational targets they set up. 8 members per booth, a strict mandate of at least 2 women per booth, which was absolutely crucial to ensure they could actually penetrate domestic spaces and reach female voters directly. Each booth secretary was made responsible for micro-targeting 200 specific families. I mean, this wasn't just some loose, informal group of volunteers showing up on the weekends. This was an active, highly trained personnel force of over 552,000 people, and they were fully deployed long before the first vote was ever cast.
And the craziest part? They were all connected through one centralized digital dashboard. The TVK War Room in Panayir could sit back and monitor everything in real time. Booth workers were verifying voter lists, identifying those crucial first-time voters, and they were actually escalating hyperlocal civic issues, stuff like a broken road or local water scarcity, straight up to the central policy team. This centralized workflow allowed the party leadership to basically execute a macro-level digital oversight over a very micro-level physical ground game. It's a brilliant feedback loop.
And that brings us to our final section, Part 5, Blueprint for Modern Elections.
So you're probably wondering, just how effective was this twin strategy of an air war and a ground game? Well, it caused a catastrophic failure of the incumbent DMK's urban management. TVK completely breached what was long considered an impenetrable stronghold right in the capital city of Chennai. Out of 16 urban seats, TVK swept 14 of them. They even defeated the outgoing chief minister in his own bastion of Kalathur. It decisively proved that in these highly connected urban centers, a digital-first strategy was overwhelmingly superior to traditional party machinery.
But wait, it wasn't just city voters scrolling on Instagram. Behind that slick, high-tech facade, TVK executed an absolute masterclass in traditional social engineering and caste territorial dynamics. They secured 23 out of 44 reserved constituencies, heavily cutting into marginalized voting blocks. Out in the western Kongu Belt, which is traditionally a massive AIA-DMK fortress, TVK essentially neutralized their rivals. How? By successfully integrating veteran political defectors like K.A. Sengotahayan into their ranks. They perfectly balanced this futuristic tech approach with old-school territorial arithmetic to ensure they had a really comprehensive statewide appeal.
And I think nothing illustrates the ultimate feedback loop of their phygital campaign better than this concept. TVK's election symbol was the whistle. So they encouraged those supporters to draw the whistle as a traditional kolam, the beautiful floor art outside their homes. People would draw the art on their porches, snap a photo on their phone, and upload it straight back onto social media. It's genius, really. It took a physical, real-world display of support and immediately turned it into an algorithm-feeding digital asset. It projected this incredible aura of unstoppable, totally organic momentum.
So as TVK officially steps out of that digital war room and into the halls of the state secretariat, we are left looking at a radically altered political landscape. A 60-year duopoly wasn't dismantled by outshouting the opposition at public rallies, it was dismantled by out-innovating them on screens and hyper-localizing the ground game. Which leaves us with a really big question to ponder. Is this tech-driven, AI-powered phygital disruption just an isolated phenomenon tied to a superstar's natural charisma, or are we looking at the definitive permanent blueprint for how future elections will be won across global democracies? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer today, and I really encourage you to keep questioning how the information around you is built.